says that I'm streaming here, but I'm not getting anything on the YouTube. Oh, there it goes. Starting stream health is not totally set. All right, but we got the YouTube chat up, and we have the LiveCoding chat up. LiveCoding being the big A number one, where most people are. So I tend to make that. I put that here on my screen where I can see it. And then the rest of this, okay. We are live on YouTube, so that can go away. Remember my password. There, look at that. Just get that patching real quick. All right. All right. All right, I'm going to do full screen there. Actually, you know what? I am going to open up another Chromium browser. I'll put the LiveCoding chat room in here. I'll still keep it off the broadcast area, but makes it easier to see. And helps me be responsive. Sorry, I should have gotten all this set up before I started my broadcast, but that's one of the things with live broadcasts is if you're not paying attention and you hit the go button, it's go time. So. All right, let's see. And for some reason, the chat room isn't showing up. Log in. Oh, that's not working right off. All right. Because I don't remember my password for this. That's okay. There. Go. Got the chat room available. Okay. So, it's been 2 weeks since our last broadcast because I actually went and got myself a vacation, which is great. I really needed it, and I feel good, ready to come back and code more. While I was on vacation, I did work on this project. I worked out a bunch of the bugs that we had before I had left for vacation. So there's actually a fair amount to show off. Oh, and Jenny Ann is on. Hello, Jenny Ann. All right. Let's see here. So I'll fire up my hosting environment. Again, I'll drag that off screen where you guys don't have to see that in the middle of the broadcast as much. Open up another terminal. I believe I've already synced up my code, but because this is on my desktop and I took my laptop with me, I'm going to just double check. Git status, git pull origin master. Already up to date. So I'm going to take a quick look at the log, add the rest of the member attributes. Okay, so this looks right. Saturday, April 2nd. Excellent. Jenny Ann's question is, what is metaprogramming? Metaprogramming is programming programs that program programs. Let that one sink in for a second. So, glad you asked. Right at the beginning of the broadcast, let me show you. I'm going to go ahead, do a Google login. Hold on. Before I get too far into that, I am going to have to reload my database because there was a significant difference since the database that I worked on while I was on vacation. So, all right, let's see here. Let's zoom in a little bit. All right. All right, tools. So in the tools thing, one of the things I did was, since I knew that I had worked on the database a bit, I created this Draco model.sql, which is just a MySQL dump of the working database. So I'm just going to hop into MySQL, drop database, Draco model. All right. And then try to remember what the opposite of MySQL dump is. Let's see here. I think actually, yeah, MySQL dump. Yeah, I know that. MySQL load dump file, because I don't really remember. Oh, look at that. You can restore the info in that database again. MySQL. Okay, so you just load it as a SQL file, which I guess makes sense. All right, let's see. Hostname we can skip. -u is root. I'm not putting my password in the console. Sorry, folks. Okay, database name is Draco model, and the file name is Draco model.sql, if I recall correctly. Yes, there it is. It'll ask me for the password. Oh. All right. MySQL root -p create database Draco model. Let's try this again. Seem to like it. That always gets me is the use command is the only command in MySQL that doesn't end with a semicolon. Always drives me nuts. Okay. Hey, all right. Okay, so we dropped the database, recreated the database when it was empty, and then just ran MySQL and then piped in the SQL file to recreate everything. So this is the database that I was working on when I was on vacation. And it's up and running now. Okay, excellent. So, yeah, as soon as I refresh, where there was no models before, now we have this test2 model. I'm not going to use that one because it's full of garbage. So we'll create another one. So we're going to say we're going to create a health care model. Right? We're going to create this model, and it's going to be called healthcare, and we're going to add an entity, and we're just going to call it a person. Right? Person has a first name, which is a string, and then family name, which is also a string, or last name, depending on your culture, and then maybe a birth date, which is a date, right? And so you start filling out what is a person, what are all of their attributes, and all of that stuff. So that's pretty decent for a high-level modeling tool. Now, and then let's say we're going to add another entity, and this is going to be chronic conditions, right? And so we're not gonna list all of the chronic conditions, right? We're building a database and data structures to hold chronic conditions. So we're gonna have a common name, and that's gonna be a string, and then maybe an ICD code, ICD-9 code or ICD-10 code, and that's gonna be a string. Let's see, it's going to automatically get an ID because of internal counters and whatnot. Maybe that's good enough. I feel like we should add something more. Let's see. We can add known symptoms, right? And that's going to be a string, and that will be a list of strings. So That's just a list of things that are known symptoms that are associated with whatever ailment that we're making up. This is, of course, not a thorough production-ready design, but gives you an idea of what's going on. And so now we're going to have a person, and we're going to have ailments, and that is a reference over to chronic conditions. And person can have more than one, so it's going to be a list of chronic conditions. So now all of a sudden we're building up the structure, we're relating everything to each other. So this is a good high-level diagram that somebody can look at and say, oh, okay, I can say that the person's related to chronic conditions, and here it is, and it's called ailments, and I can figure out what everything is without having to pour through all of your code, which is great. It's a good high-level, higher level actually than UML. Supposed to give you just a rough overview of how the darn application is put together. Then you come over here to render code, and you say, great, show that to me in MySQL. And here it is. So now all we've done is we've taken that, and we're automatically generating MySQL code out of this, right? So create database, if it doesn't exist, healthcare, person ID, which is an internal integer primary key, auto-incrementing, first name, family name, birth date, whether or not this record is active, so that you're not deleting things. So that's a way to deactivate things without deleting it. And then when it's created, and same thing with chronic conditions. And then here's a cross-reference: person ailments to chronic conditions. So this is saying that this person ailments is related to the chronic conditions table, and so this is the reference ID. The from person foreign key, right? That's that integer for that person ID. And then to chronic condition foreign key. And that should be chronic condition table, not chronic conditions, but that's fine. Chronic condition foreign key, and so that's that ID there. So now all of a sudden we have a way, so we have a table for one, table for the other, and a table for the one-to-many relationship between the two. Just like that. And what's really cool about this is a real deal database, right? So I'm just copying, pasting, and we're crossing our fingers. But if I just dumped it into MySQL and it's a real thing. Right, and so there's nothing in it because we just created it. Show columns from chronic conditions table, right? And there we go. So there's the common name, ICD-10 code, known symptoms. Right now, these are all of our char 1024. Known symptoms, since that was a list, we might split that out into another table, actually. Actually, we probably should. Whether it's active or not is binary, so everything we put in there was a string. So, you don't see the fact that it shows other things. Oh, actually, but the patient table does. Show columns from person table. So you can see, that their birth date is a date, and that's using the MySQL date type. So that is the gist of metaprogramming, that we're programming programs that write other programs. And again, just like that, the JavaScript, here it is, an object with properties, first name, family name, birth date, and ailments. So that is valid JavaScript that comes out of there. HTML, here's a cheap, ugly, super ugly form that comes out of that. And all of this is code that actually works to varying degrees of quality, but it all works. So that's what we've been up to. We're back at the point where things are mostly working again, which makes me very happy. There are a few bugs that are left over. We did some database schema changes. Originally, I'd been using GUIDs as IDs. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to keep that up because of some of the MySQL ways of dealing with GUIDs weren't very streamlined for maintaining code. And part of the key here is I want to generate code that's still fairly easy to maintain. So if you look at this SQL Server or MySQL database code, this is code similar to what a human would write. It does not get super crazy, insane, arcane levels of code, and I really want to maintain that style, because when it comes to fixing bugs or whatnot, I might not have this tool, or I might need something more specific. A tool like this is only going to get you so far, so you want to make sure that a user can step in and start maintaining the code if they need to. So that's kind of the philosophy and the approach that we're taking. Other tools take other approaches. But this is kind of how I want to do this, because there aren't many tools that really keep that in mind. They're trying to do the entire full life cycle, and sometimes that's really a problem, because not any application can manage every detail of every language. Okay, so we're going to pull up healthcare again, and one of the things you'll notice, so where we are stuck at the moment, is that we have these chronic conditions, we have the person, those loaded from the database, but none of the attributes of those loaded from the database correctly. So that is the bug that we are looking to hunt down now. Interfaces, enumerations, and notes, they all save to the database properly and can be recalled correctly, or at least mostly correctly, but the member attributes of these entities and interfaces aren't loading right. So we need to fix that. So that's where we are, and that's what we're going to do for tonight. I'm going to leave MySQL up. I'm going to go ahead and close that off. All right, and I'm going to fire up our IDE, which is PHP Storm, which I really enjoy. I get it because I am an educator, amongst other things, and so I get an educational license for it. I know that there are other IDs out there, many of which are based on Eclipse and other stuff. A good IDE is worth the money that it saves you in time. I can't stress that enough. Making do with substandard tools is something that you can do if you're just learning a language or tool set to figure out whether or not you like it. But when it comes down to really writing production code, quality tools save you money and productivity. They are worth the investment. Visual Studio, PHP Storm, Davinia says all JetBrains products are great and well worth the cost. I'm not going to disagree with that. I think I love Visual Studio. I love the new free versions of Visual Studio that are generally available. I've been very happy with the JetBrains family of tools. I'm not an Eclipse fan. I know some people that are. Use what works for you. Just like my tools that we're building here have a certain mentality and mindset. Other IDEs have that too. Find one that works for you, and if it costs $100, but you're working on a production project, you can make up $100 really quick, even if it just saves you time here and there. Those minutes can add up. Okay. All right. So let's see. We are looking for member read.php, because this is where we are getting the data from our database, and we are looking to see what the members are. Now we are logging it. That's right. I'd forgotten that we had done that. So we're going to pull that up. All right. So there's the note read, member read. Here it is. API member read.php. So the first thing we're going to do, because this is the model that we started off at the beginning of this broadcast. Verizon, go the hell away. Okay. Sorry, this is a local URL, not a global URL. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to notice when we got here is that we are getting the data. Right, we have this model ID. That's the public model ID, which is different than in the database, the primary key of the database, just because I don't like exposing the primary keys. All right. So we're getting the member IDs. That's good. They're active. We're seeing a bunch of nulls, but those are the attributes of the members that weren't necessarily filled out or applicable. Owner, that big number is me. Maximum list size, required, null, default to null, multiplicity. Model is 2, which we expect. Oh my. Right, here it is. But there is, easier, name, V. Okay, so you can see first name, family name, birth date, probably common name, known symptoms, and then ailments. Right, so here are all of the columns that we requested and all of the member attributes that belong with this model. So this all looks correct for now. And I just want to look for birth date in here. Active. What I'm looking for is, data type V is date, right? So data type here is string, data type there is date. So that's as I would expect them. So, the question is, WTF code, that certainly provided the data. So we have the response, we're JSON parsing it. All I did is put a log message in there, pulled up the healthcare thing, told it to refresh. All right, there are 7 items in here. We're seeing them. Active, right? Entity, foreign key. Model, foreign keys 2. Multiplicity, that's a list. Okay, so there's ailments, right? So that's that last member that we added to the project. So this one will probably be first name, right? Yep, there it is. First name, which is a string. This is what we expect to see. So that appears to be healthy. All right. All right. Member ID, name, parent ID. All right. So member is... So there's something there. Member ident. Member ID is there and it's populated. Member name. Parent ID, that's entity FK. That might be a problem. Yes. So here is entity FK, which is a 0. Well, that's not right in any way, shape, or form. So let's take a look at MySQL. This time I didn't put the semicolon there. Look at that. I can be taught. Yike. Okay, so the entity foreign key is constantly getting set to 0 for all of these members. And I think that's, okay, all but 2 of them. So that is certainly part of the problem. That entity foreign key should be, so a couple things. That should be the internal integer reference to the entity to which it is related. And then when I actually pull that up and provide it to this client, this entity foreign key should be the GUID of the ID, not the database internal ID. So that should be the entity ID there. So a couple of things. All right, so first of all, when I do the member read, entity FK. All right, so when I do that, I am pulling things from the member table, which is E, and the model table, which is M. And I really also need to pull from the entity table. And E is already taken. So I'm just going to add that as T as the alias from the entity table. And then what we're going to do here is entity table. Oh, that's right. Just do T dot public ID v. So this is the public GUID. And we're going to cast that. We're going to name change it to be entity FK in our query so that our interface doesn't change. But then we also have to change our where clause. So the owner is still owner. Model is in the model. Public ID, and E dot entity FK is equal to T dot entity ID. All right, so we are putting that in our where clause. We're doing that foreign key match. Old school MySQL instead of using a join, I know. But back when I learned MySQL, that was the only way to do it. I should probably update my skills. I fully own this. Can't learn everything all the time. All right, so what that's going to do is now when I refresh, everything is going to be empty because all of those references are borked. Let's see here. So I'm just going to select everything from the entity table real quick. And we're going to say, okay, person has a foreign key of 6. So I'm going to update member table set, and what is it? Entity FK equal to 6. And I know this is wrong because everything is going to become referenced to person. Right, all of a sudden that's going to have a ton of member attributes. But what that does show me is if it does that join correctly. And okay, so this model foreign key is 2. That is wrong. And actually we can get rid of that. But this entity FK, so the data showing up again and that cross-reference is working correctly. So that's excellent. The model foreign key is unnecessary because we defined the model in the query, so we don't need to read that back, so we can just get rid of that. We don't have to worry about joining that or anything. And life is that much simpler. Okay. So now we can pull up the healthcare and hey, look at that. Person has all of their person things. This doesn't solve all of our problems. We do have more problems because if we added a new field, yeah, we have a reference there thing here that's borked as well. But if we added another thing to our chronic conditions, I'm going to guess, and then we're going to call it a string. I'm going to guess we're going to go over to the database. There we go. And it's going to have, yep, there's another thing. And its reference is 0. So its entity, so we've created this parent-child relationship, but the child points to the parents. And in this case, the child is always pointing to 0 instead of its appropriate parent. So now we have to find out whether or not that's happening in our code. Where in our code that's happening. Clearly it's happening in the code, but the question is now where. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull up member create. So when I create a new member, I have the public ID, the owner, and the model. I don't have an entity right off the bat. That is likely a mistake. Let's see here. Model create. Underscore eyes. There it is. This does a generic save. No, okay. That's all right. That's okay. Pardon me, I got a left hand petting my pooch here since he's sounding whiny and needy. Poor guy. All right. So that means that it happens to be a problem with our update. So I'm wondering, when we change the parent ID, if we append to undo. Hold on a second. Okay. Yes, we append to undo this entity, object properties, parent ID. So we should see that show up. All right, so we have our current conditions. We're going to add another one. We're going to see what shows up here. All right, so when we add a new member, we create it. Let's see if we can zoom in on this. There. All right, so we're logging our network activity. All right, so we create the member ID. There it is, and then there's the model ID, and then the person ID, the owner, gets that from the Google App Engine API. Then it says member update, and the property is name, and the value is new property. And that should be in the database as new property. Yep, there it is. That's in the database just fine. So then, API member update. Okay, here it is. The property is entity. So that is the entity that we're referencing, and that's our member update command. So I think that's where we're hitting into trouble, because we need to intercept that and put in the appropriate logic. Member update. So we have a lot of things that we can update. There it is. There's entity, and then we're updating the entity FK. The thing is that, so the value, the ID of the thing, and the owner are all fine, right? Because I get the user ID, and then get the HTML special characters, the ID we use in the where statement based on the public ID. So the value, though, for all cases, or for most cases, we accept the data as it comes from the user, except for this particular case where we need to intercept it and swap in the proper kind of thing. So right now, what's going on is we're passing in a GUID, right? This this value here, blah 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 blah, and property is entity. and then that's getting converted to an integer, and that's no good. So we actually need to, on this side, we need to receive that entity, run a query, get the value for it, and then substitute in that value. In an ideal scenario, we would probably do some memory caching, but I always like to code it up and see how it performs before I bother working on memory caching or something like that, which goes back to the classic Knuth saying of premature optimization is the root of all evil. So I want to go ahead and let's at least get the basics done here, and then we can optimize it by using memcache or something like that. All right, so this is where we are going to say if the value is an ID for the entity. Well, actually, we could do it in a different update SQL statement, I think. In this case, we know, yes, update member table, set entity foreign key equal to e dot update member table M entity table E, set entity foreign key, set the member's entity foreign key equal to E dot entity ID, where E dot public IDV is equal to value. All right. All right, so where the member's public ID is equal to the ID given, and then we're pulling up the entity's public ID from there, from the value, and then the owner is the owner. So this query is really the generate update entity statement, entity property. This is a hugely, horribly long name, but it's very descriptive. So, and then we can just say if property, no. Generate. Okay, that can go away. Okay, that is property. If property to lower, what is it, to lowercase, string to lower. If it's not equal to it's not equal to entity, which is the vast majority of the time, that's our main case, and then our else is here. And take our horrifically long name and get rid of that. All right, so we know one thing, then we update this. Or yeah, if this property is entity, we do one thing, otherwise we do the other. Okay. And just standardize, standardize my quotes. And let's go ahead and give this a shot. Did I hear about Ubuntu and Windows 10? As you can see, I'm a Win 10 user. So my main machine is a Windows 10 machine, but I'm actually running this in an Ubuntu VM. I like Ubuntu. It's lightweight and whatnot. I like Windows because it runs games, and that's the big reason, actually. I run Windows under the hood. Is because Steam compatibility for games. I'll own it. But yes, Bash is coming to Windows. I have heard that. Very exciting. Because the scripting in Windows 10 is a mess. Okay. Now, the nice thing about all that, having gone through that, is that that was all on the API level, so we don't even have to refresh our browser stuff. So we can just say new property 2, and then we can look, ooh, and it's still only 2 items in that part of the member table. So now there's new property 2. Okay, there's my ID. And new property 2's entity foreign key is null. Well, it beats it being 0, I guess. Maybe not. All right. So didn't like this update statement. Let's go ahead and look at our browser history. And new property 2. Values undefined, properties undefined. I wonder what the heck is generating that. There is the command that we're looking for. Nice thing is with these API calls, we can just copy and paste that in there. And we can see what the heck is going on. All right, so it's member update. There's the ID of the member. That should be correct. Let's take a look. Public ID V. Yep, 222 is new property 2. All right, so there's that ID. There's the owner. And then this is the new value. So it does not like this query. I can't say that I'm hugely surprised by that. I did kind of wing it on that query. Let's see what we got here. So I'm going to go ahead and use gedit. And close that. And let's put these into place. So this is all just part of a fairly standard debugging process. All right, the owner ID is that big, long machination. Let's see here. The public ID is that one. And that's a string. I think owner is also a string, actually. And public ID. Oh. Nope, I got that backwards. All right. Sorry. The member's public ID is that one. Oh, no. Yes. Member's public ID, that ID is this one. Then the entity's value, the entity's public ID, is that one. All right. Oh, no, I don't mean to save that. All right, so let's copy that and just paste that into MySQL, see what the heck is going on. Paste. Blump. Owner V in where clause is ambiguous. You got to be kidding me. Puppy loves...
That's why I turned.
Puppy loves you and puppy stinks. Bad puppy. Okay. Woo! up over here. Way to go, dog. All right. So the good news is that corrected thing where we just have that owner is really potent. Oh, this is why they don't have live animals on live TV.
Let's go outside. Come on.
Okay. So, that worked. That is ID 7, which is the ailment thing. So all we need to do is say m.owner_v, and there we are. Okay. So now, when we refresh, we're going to pull up the healthcare model, and we have chronic conditions, and we have one chronic condition in there because the other ones still aren't properly associated. But the big test, we still got that issue, but that's okay. We're going to add a new item, the big test, and that's of type integer, because we can. Now when I refresh and load the healthcare model, there it is, the big test, which is an integer. It's there, and it's associated properly, which is excellent. Okay. Wonderful. So, another bug bites the dust. So we have our chronic conditions, we have our person, we have interfaces, my interface, and we don't have methods in here yet. We do have parents, although we're going to check to make sure that goes in the database. Enums. Enums, we can add an enum. My first enum. Right, and make sure that's there. And when we go to person, we can say, so for enums, we can say like, I don't know, gender. And then for person, we have new property. We'll call that gender, which is a reference to gender. All right, so we have that association pulled up. Something abstract. All right, and so that is there. That's gender, and male, female, unknown. Okay. Person, parents. Parents of person includes something abstract. So person has a reference over to something abstract. All right, so this model gets more and more built out. And now the big test comes that when we refresh, how much of it comes back? Well, there's something abstract. That's fine. There's chronic conditions. Yes, there's person with the two references. And there's gender, which exists, although isn't showing its values of male and female. So progress is. All right, so let's take a look at these enumerations. Let's see if we can solve the problem of enumerations that don't hold any values. And I'm already in that database anyway. So we're going to look at the enumeration table, and there's gender. It has a good owner. It has a model foreign key. It has a good public ID. Enumeration ID is 1. It is active and was created. Great. So that does what it needs to do. Okay. And I think I know the answer is yes. The enum value table is completely blank. Yep. Enum value ID, name, model, owner, public ID, enumeration, foreign key, active, and when it was created. Okay, so this is a sub-item that originally we're just going to serialize a JSON string, and then I actually put my software engineer hat on and said, you know what, let's actually store this in a proper table like rational developers. So we have this blank table. It never gets populated. And we need to go ahead and figure out a way to actually get some data in there. So let's take a look at this. I think is always going to be an enumeration update. So let's go ahead and watch our code, see what it does when we edit gender. Now, I think, right, as I'm adding these, nothing happens, right? There's no interaction with the server. It's not constantly interacting. Oh, go away, Avast. It's not interacting with the server as you're dynamically typing these, because it gives you time to go ahead and delete them, add new ones, whatever. So then we can hit done. Once it does that, it goes through and updates all of them all at once. And you'll notice that it does that via a very long, it serializes all the values and then puts them in a JSON object, JSON array, and sends them on up to the server. I'm not super keen on this behavior. It's going to be a little tricky to break out of that behavior because that's how literally all of the other properties and all of the other objects save. So we have one very standardized way of doing that. So I think at the very first one I'm going to do is try to, without changing the web interface and requiring the web interface to do something special in that case, I'm going to see if I can just get the server side to do something special in that case, so that the interface between the two remains unchanged. So now the question is, how do we do that? Well, we have the ID of the enumeration. We have the ID of the current user. So probably the easiest thing to do is clean out all of the old values and go ahead and just batch bring in all of the new values. All right, so active values and name. Okay, so we're gonna do similar. All right, so instead of switch, it's going to be if string to lower that property. Boy, that dog is in a mood today, isn't he?
I tried to empty him and get him to calm down, but
I tried to empty him too. Nothing. All right, string to lower, HTML special characters. So if we get the property, make it safe, and then do... Actually, we don't need to do that here because it's not going to the database. All right. If we're not dealing with the values property, then we go ahead and execute this statement. Otherwise, we're dealing with the values, and that should be quoted, which means we need to take this and do a bunch with it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to need to do is go from JSON to PHP array. Actually, JSON string to PHP array. It's not a JSON object. Woof. It's not the time. We can hang out and play later, but for now, we're busy. All right. JSON string to PHP array. Once we've done that, deactivate all values for that enum, and then insert or update each value to database table. So that would allow us to reuse things if we needed to. And actually, one of the we can look. I believe MySQL has an upsert kind of thing. Okay, so on duplicate key, you run an update, though the problem is here is we're not using the name that we have is not a key, nor should it be. So in fact, what I'm going to do is, instead of deactivate, I'm actually going to delete, which I don't delete from the database very much, but this is one of those cases where I think this should be fine. Okay. And that simplifies that because then it becomes insert each value into the database table. Okay. So, JSON string to PHP array, I don't remember how to do that off the top of my head. So let's go learn something together. PHP parse JSON string. Okay. JSON decode. There it is. Well, that was fairly straightforward. JSON decode. So we'll say JSON is equal to JSON decode of the value, and then just to make sure that I understand what the heck it is that I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and just print that out. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to look at my recent list of things that I had done. And yes, property is values, not value, and that's important. All right, so we're going to take this API call, put it in here, and see what it prints out. And it prints out absolutely nothing. All right, so it prints the word test, which is great. Oh, no, that is value, which the property is values. Huh? That's nicely overloaded. Okay, it's a standard class object that contains a male with an int value of 1 and female the value of 2. Is there a way? Associative is false. I like dealing with associative arrays more than I like dealing with objects in PHP, partially because PHP was based on associative arrays. All right. So it's an array with item 0 having both a name and an int value, and then first item being an array with a name and an int value. That's great. Array of arrays where each subarray is name int value pair. All right. So we've taken our JSON, we've decoded it into a JSON object, we've put it out to the string. All right. So that makes me happy. That can go away. All right. Delete all values for that enum. So that's the next part of this. So we have the ID and that is the public ID. And so we can say delete query equal delete from enum value table where yes, enum value ID, name, model, owner, public ID, enumeration foreign key. There it is. And then enumeration table E, because so delete from enum value table V, enumeration table E. Can you even do that in a delete statement? I guess we're going to find out. All right. Well, where enumeration FK, right, is equal to enumeration ID and enumeration public ID V is equal to colon public ID colon ID and owner should also be a column. Hold on. Owner V, yes. Owner V. The value owner V is equal to colon owner. All right. So now we can MySQL, get a connection, use that to get it. We can prepare the delete query. And then we can populate the data. So we don't need value there. We just need ID and owner, and we can execute. And we don't want to set the database to null just yet. All right, so we're going to go ahead, run that delete query. Of course, we have no idea if it works now or not because we have no data in that table. So we're going to just have to cross our fingers and hope we don't have too many bugs there. All right, and now we need to insert each value into the database table. So we're going to use the same MySQL connection. I'm going to put that up at the top here. And then let's see here. For var, oh god, it's the for each syntax in PHP. Man, you know what? I'm just going to double check it. Okay, for each JSON as, yeah, you know what, value is fine. For each item in the JSON array, and then each time you iterate, it gets a value. And then what we do is we say Right now we're just doing a bunch of inserts. It could be better. We could look into doing bulk inserting later. Oh. Okay, no, this is actually quite good. Because we can do this. So delete query. So $insert query. Insert into enum value table. Boy, and I just need that again, and I'm not super comfortable with having that delete there, and I need the ID of the parent. You know what? I'm going to get internal ID of enumeration. I'm going to do that real quick. Select query. Select something or other from enumeration table. Enumeration ID from enumeration table E, where e.public ID is that ID and the owner is the owner, and then data ID owner result is equal. Okay. So we're getting the enumeration ID from the enumeration table, where the enumeration public ID is equal to the ID given, and the owner is the current user. All right, and then we create an array, we populate these two parameters to prevent SQL injection, and we execute that statement, and we get a result. Now, the nature of that result, I don't remember, so MySQL, well, no, wait, I don't have to go very far, because I have this read. Okay, result statement. All right. Okay, so statement, execute it with that data. Look at that. I told you I liked fetching associative arrays. So the statement, fetch all, PDO, fetch associate, fetch associative, and put it into that result. So now I'm just going to print our result. And just to see what I got. Call to member function execute on null. Ah, right. All right. So we need to prepare that select query. All right. And we get back an array with nothing in it. Select enumeration ID. Still nothing. Okay, property is values. It does have a value. Printing a quick test. Yes. We are getting to this proper section. Select enumeration ID. Alright, enumeration table. I'm just going to do a quick. Okay. Enumeration ID, owner, public ID v. Don't need that dereferencing. Oh, and that would actually probably do it. There's my bug. Yes. Array 0, array enumeration ID. Row 0, enumeration ID. There it is. Okay. That's the enumeration ID that we've pulled from the database so that we know that it's safe. Or at least it can be fairly sure that it's safe. All right, so now we can delete from enum value table v, where enumeration fk is equal to enum. Might as well just spell it out. And the owner, and I'm the owner. So we always do this owner check just to make sure the person has proper permissions. So we prepare the delete query. We have the array, so we need the enumeration ID and the owner. So we do that. We don't need HTML special characters because we're pulling this ID that could only have come from the database and therefore is always an integer. The owner, on the other hand, we get from Google App Engine, and so we just are careful with it just in case. And so we don't technically know what happened there, but I'm much happier with that delete statement. Okay. Insert into enum value table. We've already done our lookup once. Okay, so insert into enum table v values. Let's see here. Actually, show columns from enum table enum values table. Show tables. Show columns from enum value table, not plural. Okay, at least I'm being consistent. There we go. Enum value ID, that's on our increment. Name, model. Okay. Name, value. Those shouldn't be capitalized. Name, value, what else we got? Oh, it's name, model FK. That's going to be another problem. We'll deal with that up there. Owner, public ID. Which I think is actually going to be null for now. Enumeration FK, which we know no. And active B is defaults to 1 and created always defaults to the current timestamp, so we don't need to put those in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns that we actually need to fill out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the only problem there is that should be name V, not just name. Okay, great. Beautiful. Colon name, colon model, owner, ID, now we prepared that statement. So we have a prepared statement. The other thing here, enumeration ID. So let's do model FK. Because we're already running this query, we can pull that same thing right out of there. And so we can say data is a new array. And colon name equals something or other. Model. Come on. Name, model, owner, ID, and foreign key. All right, so that goes there. This model ID that we just pulled, that goes there. The owner is that one. This stays blank for now, and then the name. Oh, wait a minute. We're also missing like integer value. We don't have an int value in my enum value table. Son of a bitch. Son of a bitch. All right. Well, that's going to be a problem that we're going to need to solve. But that is going to be HTML special characters of value name, right? Because we had that, right? Name and then an int value. Alter table enum value table add. Ooh. Alter table enum value table add column int value I integer. Can be null, default is null, int value I. Beautiful. All right. So that's fine. We'll just keep it short. Int and then int value. All right. Let's try this again. Hey there, Cookie. Refresh that. Make a little thing. Pops up actually select the data instead of the columns. Empty. Oh, yes. Well, there is that. Actually running the command that you have so carefully put together does usually actually help. Print data array. Well, right, we knew that. Name is male, int 1. Model is 2. Owner is that. ID is blank. Foreign key 1. Name is female, int is 2. Model is 2. Owner is my owner. ID is blank. Foreign key is 1. That looks correct. All right, well. Time to pull up gedit again and see what the heck we're doing wrong. Okay, foreign key is 1. ID is blank. Owner is that machination. Model is 2. Int is 2, and name is female. Paste. And apparently I've just gotten my insert syntax wrong. Oh, I'm missing a comma. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Sure enough, there it is. Extra points to Atticus. Acadius, sorry. Hopefully pronouncing that right. Missing the comma. Okay. So now, we're going to come up here. No, wait, wrong one. Come up here. Call my API again. We should see 3 things in here. Okay. Female, male, female, female, because I fat-fingered and there we go. 6 rows. Okay, so things aren't getting deleted. But things are certainly getting created, and they look generally correct because all of the males are getting... so everybody has the right owner. The male has an integer value. They're all in the right enumeration. Active. Nobody has public ID, but the males have the int value of 1, where the females have the int value of 2. That is generally correct. All right. So now why is this delete from this not working? One at a time, we'll slowly get all this crap to work. All right, so all right, that looks fine. We know that's fine. That is going to get things to grow. All right. Does not help to print there. Enumeration ID is 1, and the owner is that. Okay, well, that's what I expected. Paste. Oh. Right, no aliasing and a delete statement, even though it shouldn't have mattered. And let's take a look. Aha! There we have it. Okay. Now we're just down to 1 male, 1 female that are active in the database. They've gone in there and they look good. So now if we come back to our main model here, yeah, and this has issues when you leave the page and come back. We're going to have to check into that. Something abstract, kind of conditions, person, gender, right? And gender right now, we're not reading it, we're only saving to it. So let's go ahead. Let's do female first this time. Male, do, done. So we all technically start out as female anyway. All right, so now we're starting female, then going to male. All right. So that's being set here, going into the database. Female, yes. Integer 1, male integer 2. Oh, didn't like that question mark. No, did not like that at all. Uh-oh. I think I broke something. Done. Okay. All right, A, B, C, and they have zeros as their values because those were null. All right, and that's fine. That, I think, actually, that actually has potential to be a problem because integers start counting at 0. So if it defaults to 0, that is actually a problem. I'm going to go ahead and print our data again and see. All right, gender values added A, B, C. Those go into the database. And now I can do this and put that there. Stop. Go back. Relative URL. All right. Okay. Int model owner foreign key. All right. So those come through and that's interesting. Okay, so it does have the int. Int is blank. Value. Just going to go ahead and print that instead and see. All right, so int value is blank. So basically, I'm just going to do a quick check here to see if it's not null. If it is not null, then I put it in. Otherwise, I'll leave it out. Yeah, hold on a second. MySQL PDO insert null. So I want to keep my number of parameters the same. Bind param. Except for we're already using, we're executing an array. It's fine. I'm just going to try this real quick, see what happens. We're just going to see what happens. All right, well, it didn't complain. Ah, there it is. Okay. So it accepted the fact that I just set that int value to null. That's actually really important because it is an integer value. In this case, not every language is going to need it or accept it. So we can't always have it set, especially defaulting to 0 is a problem because that is a valid value. So we can't have it defaulting when we mean it to be nothing. We can't have it defaulting to something, and especially can't have it defaulting to something that is a value that is useful. This works much to my satisfaction, actually. So it's this entry for the enumerations is a lot more involved than our other update statements, right? Our other member updates and whatnot, right? We do a bunch of whitelisting, and then we just do a couple quick things, and we're set, and we're off to the races. For the enumerations, it's much more involved, but this really does enforce data integrity and whatnot. So very happy with that. Again, I'm just going to go ahead, update that in the URL to see if, yep, ABD. The enum values, these are going to go up real quick. I'm going to have to make sure that I got a lot of headroom. Show columns from enum value table. I'm going to make sure I got a lot of headroom there. Int 11. What is the range of that going to be? MySQL range of int 11. In MySQL, stored before bytes can only contain. Okay, yeah, we're good. Up to 2 billion. All right. Shouldn't need to worry about going over to. Oh, thank you, Acadius again. 2 billion signed. That's a fair amount of headroom. I guess we could switch over to big int, but I think that's going to take care of us for the foreseeable future. Yeah. All right. Let's see here. So I think that's going to take care of things for tonight. We've done a lot. I know we're still not loading these enumeration values. We've just got them into the database where they should stay. I do want to make sure that I redump this file. So I'm going to say MySQL dump -u root -p. I don't think so. -d, I believe. Draco model to Draco model.sql. You know what? I don't think it needs the -d for a database. Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay. It didn't like something. MySQL options database. MySQL. Oh. Dum 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 dum. Boonk. Oh. Cat Draco model.sql. All right. Great. Gedit. All right, so what I'm going to do in here, I'm just going to pop it open in gedit so we can have a look around. And then the other thing I'm going to do is get rid of this data in here because we know this data is garbage. So we don't need to keep that part of this, right? We just really want the database structure because this is all test data. There's the model table. Note table, nothing in the note table. And you know what? There's a MySQL dump command to do this, actually, so that we don't have to do this manually. You know what? Let's learn it. Let's learn it. Because really, we just want the structure only, which I think that's what it was, or called. Default, all databases, add drop. Table, allow keywords, bind address, character sets, comments, compatible. Host, ignore table name. Okay. Nobody says it right off the top of my bat. We're going to be going through this help file. You know what? This is really, really long, and the internet searches are very, very fast. MySQL dump, no data. MySQL dump -d. Huh. Funnily enough, I thought it said it didn't like -d. Reload. Host, localhost. All right. Entity table, enum table, enum value table, enumeration table, member table, model table, and note table. And yes. Okay. So here it is, just the structure without any data, because we know that our data in there is all test data. And because this is Linux and I can, nano dump Draco model structure str .sh. There we go. Yes, we save it, and then chmod +x dump. And now all right, and now we can come back over to gedit. Close without saving. Yep. All right, and there it is. All right. Good things done. Bugs fixed and features added. New things are being saved to the database, so let's close out for the night. Look at our Git status. Let's see, tools, and we're going to do rm Draco model.sql tilde. All right. Git status again. Okay, git add, and just add everything. Git commit. And what's our commit message? We are loading entities, loading members, saving enum values, but not reading them. Oh, hey, Joshua911. Welcome aboard. Unfortunately, you're just joining us just as we're closing out for the night. Git push origin master. All right. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and deploy the latest to my server just to make sure that it's up there, even though the database structure isn't on that server. But it just is always nice to have 2 copies of the code. One on my Git and one on my server itself. And then, of course, the one on here. All right, well, that is everything. I hope you all enjoyed our session this evening as we go ahead and are squishing bugs and are finding more things. We've certainly made a fair amount of progress this evening. The last week or so has been very good for this project. If you have any questions and thoughts as I'm closing down, now's the time to ask them. I'm happy to answer as many as I can. If you've gotten something out of this, then please go ahead, hit that like button, that share button. Tell all your friends about me if you enjoyed it. If you didn't, well, go ahead, shoot me a comment, and I will try to take your feedback into consideration. I have made some adjustments. I've made the chat room more available so that I can respond to people faster. I've started streaming on multiple platforms, that kind of thing. So, I do actively request feedback. That's not just lip service, because I'm a professional software developer, not a professional broadcaster. I do this because it's fun, not because anybody makes me. So, again, if you got something, like, share, heart, whatever it is on the particular streaming platform that you're watching from, really appreciate it. I hope you all have a great week. We're back on our normal schedule. Last week I was just on vacation, so next week we're going to be at it again, and we're going to be reading enumeration values. And in the next coming weeks, my day job looks like is going to have me working on some C++ code. So I am going to relearn C++, and I haven't worked with C++ in it's 2016 now. I'm gonna go with 17 years or so. So C++ has changed significantly since I last used it. So in the coming weeks, we're going to be working on C++ code rendering. So we're going to take that high-level design and be dumping things to the MySQL database, but we're also going to be creating some C++ code. And so you will get to join me as I relearn about things like pointers, which I haven't used in well over a decade. So that should be exciting and or hilarious, depending on your perspective of things. Looks like everything is updated and is up and running, so that is going to do it for me for tonight. Thank you all for tuning in and participating. And I look forward to seeing everyone next week. Take care. Bye-bye.